Anytime I talk about phones like the Galaxy Z Fold or the Z Flip or any other folding OLED screened device, there's one thing that comes up from a lot of people in the comments. There's kind of this split down the middle, right? There's people like myself who love these devices, who see the utility in these devices, and really do think that they're going to continue to grow and to get better, and that more and more people are going to buy them. And then there are the people who still to this day will claim that they are nothing but a fad, that they are the next 3D TVs, and that they're just going to die out relatively soon. Recently, Samsung Mobile Experience, you may see this abbreviated as Samsung MX, they had a meeting at the end of October with suppliers to discuss their foldable phone business. In this video, we're going to quickly go over what was discussed. There's a few pretty interesting little tidbits, some nuggets in there, and maybe some hints at what we can expect out of the Z Fold 5. So as usual, I have organized my thoughts into a Twitter thread. You can follow me on Twitter at ScaryIfLiteral to perhaps see some of this stuff early. There is a typo in this first tweet, and yeah, that's just there now. There's no edit button as of yet, so that's just going to be there in perpetuity. The first thing I thought was interesting from the notes from these meetings was that Samsung is hoping to reach up to 80% annual growth rate by 2025. That would be pretty substantial. We have to keep in mind that right now the market share is quite small for foldable devices. So you need a rapid growth, but not just a little bit of a rapid growth. You need an exponential growth to catch up. And if they're able to actually grow the business by 80% every year, annually, 80% growth, you're going to pretty quickly reach a point where you're going to be seeing foldable phones all over the place. And this speaks to the confidence that Samsung has in their business. And clearly, they're going to have more data on these things than anybody else in terms of how people feel about them, how they're selling, long-term use, things like that. They're going to know these sorts of things better than anybody, and that's how they're going to come to these conclusions about where they expect this business to grow. By now, if they didn't think it was going to grow, they would be abandoning folding phones, but they're not. They're actually expecting it to grow quite rapidly. And here is some of that data that we're talking about that they're going to have. In South Korea, apparently, people aged 20 to 30, so like younger-ish people, are switching from Apple to Samsung foldables at a rate 3 or 4 times higher than before. And they believe this is due to their foldable phones. They're giving people something that Samsung is not offering. Now, they did say they expect Samsung to have their own folding device in the next 2 or 3 years, but right now, they're out ahead, and that's just a fact of reality, and they think that is drawing people over to their brand in South Korea. Apparently, Samsung also has data that indicates that 90% of foldable smartphone users will purchase a foldable smartphone as their next device. I've said this before, there's something about owning one of these devices that kind of makes a standard slab smartphone, no matter how good it might actually be, kind of hard to switch to. You get really used to having these different form factors at your disposal, the things you're able to do on this folding device. It's really difficult to use that for a year or 2 or 3 and to then go back to a standard, what I would call kind of a boring slab smartphone. And evidently Samsung has data that backs that up. People that are buying folds are buying folds again when it comes up for them to buy their next phone. And of course, one of the biggest metrics for that, that kind of points in that direction and kind of helps bolster this view is just user satisfaction. How happy are people after they bought their device? They seem to feel like their information says people are quite happy with their Z Folds. Now, let's switch gears and let's talk about some of the things that they wanted to have actually in the Fold 4, but weren't able to get in. During the meeting, they shared that they actually planned for the Fold 4 to have a silo for the S Pen. You probably know now that there is no silo for the S Pen. If you want to carry your S Pen around, you probably are going to have to use a case. Something like this thing that allows you to just sort of attach the pin to your case. They wanted to solve this issue and have the S Pen actually inside the device. And we saw rumors to that effect early on that they were definitely working on that, but they weren't able to get there. And they cited, the thickness, the weight of the device as problems for that. They also wanted to have a better camera setup, right? And it's already an improved camera setup, so this is my speculation here. Maybe they wanted to do something with the periscope zoom like they have in the S22 Ultra, the Ultra line of their S series. Again, that needs more physical space. You're going to cut into the battery, thickness, weight, all these things are going to be getting in the way. But that does potentially indicate something that if they wanted to do it in the 4, they're going to want to do it in the 5 as well, right? I think that just makes sense. So with the Z Fold 5, People said the 4 was a majorly iterative release. The screen got a bit wider. There's some improvements to the camera, but nothing like landmark. I think the 5 may be a much bigger upgrade. If they're actually able to stuff in a periscope zoom and an S-Pen silo, that would be very impressive. And we are pretty confident at this point, based on what they just said, that that is something they're going to be looking into and trying to accomplish. But of course, in order to do that, there are some problems that need to be solved. How do you do these things without making the device any thicker? This thing has to fold over, so that makes it quite a chunky device. You have to solve these problems, but there's more than just those problems. They talked with their suppliers about some of the other challenges, and one of the ones they brought up was just software working better on their display's aspect ratio. It's kind of a 4:3-ish aspect ratio, and that kind of makes it an outlier in the smartphone world. So software that works better on that screen is a problem. The crease is definitely something that they're trying to work on. You can see here pictured an Oppo Find N, with I believe that is a Z Fold 3 there pictured. You can see the Oppo Find N has a much less noticeable crease. That's something that Samsung is communicating with their suppliers that needs to continue to be developed and to get better and better. Durability is another aspect with this folding screen. Has to improve, as well as thickness. Ultimately, they have to go the other way. They can't be getting thicker. They actually need to be getting thinner to make this thing lighter and more pocketable. This thing is still a lot heavier than your average phone, and that's something that they think needs to change. All in all, there's a lot of interesting stuff there. I will drop the original source to this in the description down below if you want to check it out and see if I left off anything you thought was interesting. But like I said, important look forward at not just what Samsung thinks is happening now, where they think the business is going to go, how it's going to grow, and their commitment to folding phones, but also a little bit of a look there at what the Z Fold 5 is likely to be targeting to have in. How big of a difference does that make to you? Potentially having an even better camera setup, an S-Pen silo instead of having to have something like this attached to your case. How important are these things to you? Let me know in the comments down below. I'll see you on the next one, and until next time, stay nerdy, my friends.